All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started today. As I mentioned to our class, we are very fortunate to have some very wonderful individuals here today. And as much as I like to talk and do introductions, I know that you guys can really tell the class more about you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank you again for your time this morning and for letting us share just in a few minutes of your day. If you would go around and introduce yourself, give the class your name, your position, and just a little brief tidbit about how much experience you have with Teams and maybe even how much you currently use. And we'll go ahead and start with Beth.
Hi guys, my name is Beth Adele. I am the Director of Career Services at the University of Central Oklahoma. I am also in charge of financial literacy here and the Veteran Higher Education Resources Office. As far as teams go in higher education, you don't get to survive without being on a team. You get voluntold a lot. Committee work is just rampant. So higher education kind of uses that as a credibility and collaborative factor. And so many times if there's a project in place, there's going to be some type of team involved. So I'm on the Faculty Senate as well as the Faculty Senate Executive Team. I chair an assessment team, and I'm on the university assessment team. I'm on 2 different strategic teams for the university, transformative learning team, accreditation teams, as well as some other little small project teams here on campus.
All right, we've lost Afton for a moment, so if you can give me just 1 second, I will try to add Afton right back. 1 moment, please. Afton, are you there?
Yes.
Great. Okay, we had a little bit of a feedback problem there just a minute ago, but would you go ahead and introduce yourself to the class?
Yes. Am I too loud?
You're perfect.
Okay. This is my inside voice. My name is Afton Barber, and I'm a graduate teaching assistant at UT Tyler, along with Elva, finishing halfway through our PhD program. For me personally, my work experience is very diverse. My first job out of college was actually for Walt Disney World in Florida, and I worked in a team there. I also have a pretty good experience with team selling. If any of you actually are salespeople, you understand that's a really different component when you're selling with teams. And I actually teach a class called Supervision in the HRD and Technology Department, and I teach about teams and specifically this semester about virtual teams. So that's what I'm going to speak about today. Thank you.
Excellent, Ethan. Thank you. Jeremy, are you there?
Yep. Hi, my name is Jeremy Gomez, and I'm the Instructional Technology Coordinator here at A&M Commerce. Before that, I was a video support specialist here for the campus. I've worked in radio as well before getting into higher education. So basically, team and collaboration has been a focus point all throughout my professional career, even in college before that. It really is just one of those where you get involved with projects and you cater to your clients if you're in the business realm, and we treat our clients as, I guess we should say, our faculty, for more so lack of terms, what I deal with more so. And we work with them day in and day out, and it's just a great opportunity to be able to do so. And so, yeah, I've had a lot of background in collaboration and teamwork. So.
Thank you, Jeremy, and you take very excellent care of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Elva.
All right, and I know you paid me to say that. I want my money soon. Okay, Dr. Harris, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Anthony Harris. I'm professor of education at Mercer University. I'm on the Atlanta, Georgia campus. And I have an extensive background in working with teams. I've been working in higher education since 1976. Much of my career was spent right there at Texas A&M Commerce. It was actually called East Texas State University back when I was there. I was a residence hall director. I was director of the counseling center there for a while, and and served as President Jerry Morris's executive assistant for about 5 or 6 years. One of my really big experiences in working with teams was I was on the school board in Commerce for 15 years. I was board chair for 6 of those 15 years. And I have worked just in a number of, just from staff position, faculty positions to executive leadership positions. I've had quite a bit of experience in working with teams.
All right, thank you, Dr. Harris. And last but not least for today, Ben, would you like to share with us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again. My name is Ben Levan. I'm currently the president and CEO of Propel, which is an HR consulting company. I'm also the assistant professor of management here at Oklahoma Wesleyan University. And thirdly, and probably most importantly, I'm the husband of Stephanie Levan. And as we talk about teams, we're all very much involved in teams in all aspects of our life, including our marriages. From a professional standpoint, from the education realm, various subcommittees. I've spent about 20 years of my career in executive HR leadership as well for an IT company called EDS, many project teams there, so we'll get into more of the specifics about effective teams here in just a moment.
All right, thank you, Ben. Okay, so now that they know a little bit about you and your team experience, I feel very good in asking this next question, which is what do you believe are some characteristics, some very important characteristics of effective teams? If you could just share a couple of those with us, and we'll go ahead and begin with Beth.
Well, first and foremost, in my experience, we all need to have a shared perspective and a scope of what we are in the team to do. So being strategic and organized up front is incredibly important. Having a charge, writing it down, having the team members read it, sign it, so, respond in some way that they all understand why the team is coming together. All the team members need to have a sense of curiosity, humility to some degree, but also really make sure that they're bringing their perspective and their experiences to the table. A lot of people say that they put teams together for collaborative purposes, and then they forget that collaboration is not just getting along. Collaboration is making sure that you engage in some really healthy conflict and come out on the other side again with something that you're very proud of in terms of project, result, deliverable, communication effort out of that team. So never think that in terms of, when you get into a team situation, please never think that you're there just to get along and support the one person who steps up to be a leader and says, this is how I think it should be. You're on a team for a reason. Even if you're voluntold, which is a horrible thing to have happen, but it happens, when it's, you're assigned to this team whether you like it or not. Even in that situation, knowing yourself and knowing the expertise that you bring to the table and not being quiet about it is incredibly important to the success of a team.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth. Afton, what do you have to add to that? Some characteristics.
Effective communication. That's number one, foremost. I agree with all of Beth's comments. I think a lot of times, especially in teams, we assume that people know what we're thinking or feeling. And especially in virtual teams, that can be very difficult because you're missing communication signals, if you will. Hand contact, verbal skills are great, but we also use body language to communicate things as well. And so that can be very effective communication can help a team get to the goal in mind.
Okay, thank you, Afton. Jeremy?
I 100% agree that your communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, and your diversity makes up a great team. I would also have to throw in probably adaptability as a great characteristic, along with responsibility and accountability for each of your team members. You go into a group and knowing that you have expectations, and then that you figure out the scope of a project, and your team has to be all together. Might not have the right, might not be all on the same page as far as ideas in the way about getting to the end solution, But everyone has to have that understanding that, I'm going to take accountability for my actions, and then you also have a sense of responsibility to the entire group. With that being said, adaptability is knowing that you might have that expertise in one area of the project, so you might have to take lead on a certain aspect of it and be that leader. However, you might have to be a follower in some of the other aspects of the project, and so you have to kind of balance that out to know where you stand out and where you can help out in certain parts of the beacon.
Excellent, Jeremy. Dr. Harris, what do you have to add to that?
Well, I think my colleagues have covered many of the points I wanted to make, but let me just emphasize one more item. That is to check your ego at the door.
Great.
I think there's a certain amount of humility that comes with being a team member. That doesn't mean that you give up your ideas and your passion, your values, or any of those things, but know that you're there for a common purpose. And if you are not on board with the purpose for which the team has been established, then perhaps this is not the opportunity for you. That doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything, because I think you should always maintain your ideas and your beliefs and not be intimidated or afraid to express those beliefs. So the idea of just being there, and as you leave, you can pick up your ego as you exit the meeting room. I think having a clear understanding of what the goals of the team are. Sometimes people misunderstand what this team is about to embark upon. Make sure there's a clear articulation of those goals and tasks, and make sure you understand what they are. Don't be afraid to seek clarification. Don't make assumptions that everybody knows what you know, or that the leader has information that you don't have. So be sure and do that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ben, again, last but not least.
Thanks. I want to look at this from a leadership perspective, and that is to practice what you preach. We all talk teams. You're here in class. You're learning about teams. But so often, especially in the workforce, if you will, we talk teams, but that's not really what we reward. And our systems aren't even designed to reward teams. So in essence, for example, if you have your leaders saying teamwork is important, we've all got to pull together to get these projects complete, but you're promoting and you're compensating people for individual behavior, well, guess what's going to get done? The individual behavior. And quite honestly, as human beings, we want to get ahead. And sometimes teamwork breaks down because of our own insecurities and fears that, hey, if I help the next guy or gal, then that's probably going to hurt my chances for a raise or promotion. I had a wonderful experience of somebody who did actually walk the talk with this, and it was early on in my career at a company called EDS. I was a new supervisor. We were in a team meeting, and I began to tout what great things I was doing on my team. And my leader, her name was Margaret Ferroni, very subtly asked me, well, have you shared that information with Carol? I very quickly got the point. This team that we were on was not about me getting ahead, but of us all succeeding together. And that really shaped the way that I approach team and look at teams.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. Well, you actually gave us a real good segue into the next question. Thank you for that. What do you believe can actually hurt a team or maybe make them not as effective? Beth?
Well, I've already talked about the whole voluntold situation, but it's kind of hard to completely avoid that when someone gets appointed to a team. It's really important if you are in an organization, you see teams being formed, and they do give you the opportunity to choose the teams to go ahead and make that effort and choose the one that you're interested in. But there's a lot of research out right now, as well as a lot of practitioner works that talk about how numbers can harm teams. Too many on a team can affect the team in a certain way if it's not divided in subcommittees. So having way too many people on a team could harm it unless you break off into points of interest and special interest areas. Too many people allow some people not to be engaged. So you have that. the chairperson never being a champion. If there's never a champion for the end result and the charge of the team can really break down. Someone having that responsibility to be the cheerleader, and it's even better if there are more people than just one. But I believe that's incredibly important. And then going back to having someone be that communicator. If you don't have those people lined up to be the communicators internally as well as externally, then the work of the team is not going to be known, and then teams can be duplicated, which is very difficult to deal with when you know that you've spent, a year of your time and somebody else is working on the same thing across the way simply because communication did not take place. And then, of course, no understanding of a charge or deliverable is very difficult because you just, that sight, that vision gets lost, and the team ends up breaking down, not knowing their roles. And when you don't know your roles, you end up not doing any work.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Beth. Okay, Afton?
I would say that I know Elva has probably covered the stages of team development, but I think sometimes when team members aren't familiar with these actual developments, forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning, and especially for team members that don't like conflict, because the storming phase is important. And I think sometimes in teams we miss that. And it's not necessarily that we want to have a big knockdown drag out. It's just that everybody needs to know their role, and like Dr. Harris said, check your ego at the door. It's not that somebody's against you. It's that you need to understand that part of a team is going through the actual process of what it means to build a team. And that it's very important, those stages. And so don't look at trying times as, detrimental to your team. I've seen a lot of student teams, if you will, go through the storming phase and come out so much better. And even in my own personal experience, there are times when I look back now and go, wow, that was really critical to our success as a team. Even though we thought it was awful and a bad thing at the time, it really wasn't. So just know that there are going to be bumps in teamwork, and that's just part of it. So,
thank you, Afton. That's great. Jeremy, what do you have to add to that about things that might be able to hurt a team?
I agree 100% that we'll talk back on with the storming phase, is that you have to accept criticism. You have to accept the constructive criticism of being in a team, and that's at the very beginning stages where they are hashing out those ideas. And so being able to know that it's not a personal attack, and understanding that the constructive criticism is a necessity in order to get to that next tier into the process of creating an end solution and creating that overall project. Another big characteristic, and I think we all touch on it, it's fear. Fear of not communicating, fear of not telling your side of your opinions, your ideas, the fear of groupthink. That is the major characteristic, I think, of having be detrimental to a team, is just fear, overall general feeling.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's very true. Dr. Harris?
Yeah, my views or final comments are right in line with what Jeremy just talked about, and that is the avoidance of the group thinking, the group mentality. There's a certain place for conformity. There's also a place for people to express their points of view, and avoid being reticent, timid, or intimidated by others in the room. There are times when people will defer or demur because somebody has these 3 letters behind their name, or they're called an expert. If you have some views and perspectives and ideas and information, please feel free to share that information, because if you withhold that information, you're depriving the group of some very valuable information. You were asked to be on that team for a reason. And it's very likely that the reason is that you have something to offer. And if you don't offer it, you're not being fair to the other members of the team by withholding that. Even if you think, well, I'm not as qualified, I don't have as much education, I don't have as much experience as the person sitting across the table from me. please don't do that, because not everybody who has those 3 letters behind their name is necessarily an expert.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Ben, would you like to close out the discussion on what can hurt a team?
Yeah, sure, thanks. Again, a lot of great comments here. I would say that in this phase, the phrase "be accountable" is so important. And that is, if there's not accountability either amongst group members themselves or to a boss or supervisor, an outside source, then people often take the path of least resistance on that. So I'm sure we've probably all been on teams where we felt that someone hasn't been pulling their weight. So from a personal standpoint, you need to be accountable, and you need to have a high sense of integrity to make sure that you're completing your task and giving the utmost to the team.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. The accountability is important. All right. So as we go through our final group question here before we turn it over for student questions, the last question has to do with something, a golden nugget, a takeaway of wisdom for working in effective teams. And keeping in mind, you've given us plenty to think about, so we definitely appreciate that. But I guess this is more of a, if someone asked you right off the street, what do you think is the most important thing to remember about working in teams, what would that be? So Beth, we'll go right back to you.
Sure. It's stay organized, allow for dissension, and then always communicate internally with the team as well with external stakeholders.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth. Afton.
I ditto that. Good communication. Make sure you communicate with everyone involved, and like Beth said, even external people or sources, because sometimes they don't know what's going on. They're not in as deep as you are in your team work. So that, yes, communication.
Okay, Jeremy.
I'm going to sound like I'm echoing, but yes, great effective communication is key. And then just make sure that you never give up on what the end solution is. Just don't, if you have to be the one to believe in it's going to work and believe in what you're trying to do overall, whether it's just a simple project or an initiative that's going to take many years, but yet you got to stay with it. And so determination is also good. So
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. Dr. Harris.
I will stay with the theme of communication and just say, know your voice, find your voice, express your voice. Know that not everybody's going to agree, but that's no reason to not express yourself and know your voice and fully participate.
Okay, thank you. And Ben?
For me, it is the fundamental belief and knowledge that all of us are smarter than one of us. And it really is a foundational principle of group dynamics. And it isn't always pleasant. You know, I go back to my marriage situation again, you know, with a spouse or with could be your significant other. You may disagree on things, but to be able to hear one another and know that together we're stronger. If you really believe that, then all the storming phases and all the other things kind of take care of themselves.
That's definitely true. Thank you, Ben. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to mute the mic for just a second, and then I will open it up for the class to ask any questions of you. So just give me about 20 seconds here, okay? One moment.
Sure.
All right. Well, I think they think I've had too much caffeine this morning, and they're probably right. But what we've got is we've got a whole classroom here of willing and able students to ask some questions and benefit a little bit from the knowledge that they've heard today. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to them to ask some questions. And if you have a question, I'm going to ask you to a specific person. Please go ahead and direct it to them so that they know that they're to answer, okay? And the rest of you, if you've got something, Ben, Beth, Afton, Jeremy, Dr. Harris, if you want to jump in and add something real quickly, feel free to do so as well, okay?
Sounds great.
All right, so let's take our first question from the audience. I should have been in radio. First question from the audience. Anybody? Okay, I see one hand going up there. Sarah, would you go ahead and I don't think there you go. All right, here we go. Go ahead and let it out. Yeah, stand up. It's easier.
Hello, my name is Sarah Diaz. I'm a general business major, and this is my junior year. And the question that I have for you is just if you ever had the opportunity or were given the opportunity to lead a team, how did you make sure that you were going to accomplish the goal? Was it dividing tasks or maybe making sure that the team members bond before you actually went into work, or did you provide maybe incentives? So what was your strategy, I guess, into leading the team?
All right, I guess that's up and open for anybody here.
I can take that.
Okay.
Was it Sarah?
Yes, sir.
Sarah, nice to meet you. Thank you for the question. I've been in leadership for most of my career. As a matter of fact, there's a great new book out. It's an easy read if you're a business major. It's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And one of the ways that I've accomplished that task is to my point about accountability. And that is simply meeting on a regular basis, not to pound anybody or anything like that, but just to get a status of what's going on. So for example, Sarah, if I ask you, and you know that I'm going to do this every week, if I say, Sarah, how are you coming along with the reading for this course? You're more apt to be accountable and to keep on track with your reading. It's the same way with any other project. And if you want to keep those goals, just check all those milestones along the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth, did you have something to add to that?
Well, yes, and it piggybacks on what Ben has to say. It's more on the organizational perspective of it. Earlier when I was talking about having a clear charge, it's very important. And there are a lot of, you guys could go to mindtools.com, you could, pick up on books, you can just Google team charge format, and you can see the different components that you have in a specific charge for a team. For all of the team members to look at that charge and also be involved in writing the rest of the charge, unfortunately what many times happens is a charge, it comes down from above, just this nebulous, cabinet or executive boardroom, etc. We need a team to execute this. And you take that on for yourself and be the chairperson, be the champion of it, be the liaison with that nebulous above entity. It's really important that you take that purpose statement for the team and really line it out organizationally in a specific charge. Why, talk among yourselves of why all of the different members are on that team specifically, what they are expected to bring to the table, what do they expect they're able to bring to the table, and then hold them accountable for that, not in a punitive way, but in an encouraging way. One thing that's really important for the teams that I have led, minutes of the meetings, and it gives you an excuse to touch base with them multiple times between meetings, and using meeting reminders in an electronic way. Use Outlook, use whatever you're using at your organization, it could be Google, etc., and really let them know. When I like to, and I know it's kind of sneaky, but I like to set a meeting date, and then I like to update that meeting date with the location, and then I like to update that meeting date with the agenda, and then I like to update that meeting date with the previous minutes of the previous meeting. And so I'm hitting them 4 different times with just a calendar entry, and it keeps them accountable, and it keeps them going in that organization. So if you do not like being organized, this is something at the very beginning stages that a team member See if you can recruit someone to help you be organized from the very beginning. So make sure that you do stay organized, stay communicative, as well as encouraging of all members, and never fall into the trap of the project management trap, I call it, where a chairperson never takes any task on themselves. You've got to prove credibility, and you need to take something on yourself, but don't take everything.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth. All right. Any other questions? Come on. I know I see some shy people here. Okay, I see another question from the back. Come on up. It's like The Price is Right. They get to run down the aisle. Here he comes. He's coming. There you are.
Okay. My name is Nathan Allen. I'm Business Administration Manager, Finance Minor. I had a question here inside my notes. I think it was Mr. LeBron. He said that systems aren't designed to reward teams. With my experience here at A&M Commerce, as of recent, the teacher will make it as to where at the end of the group project, there will be a group evaluation, and you will be able to be rewarded individually. And I think that helps somewhat, but it also kind of hinders the group, because sometimes people will pretend to care about the group and say they will do something just so in the end they will be remembered on the group evaluation. But when it comes time to be accountable, they won't do so. How do you go about getting them to be accountable the entire time?
Okay. Elva, could you repeat the gentleman's name? There was a little bit of an echo for me. What was your name again?
That was Nathan.
Nathan, thank you for that question. Nathan, let me look at this from a broad perspective first. When I look at systems, the real contradictory message when I was talking about the practice what you preach principle here, most systems are designed to reward individual behavior. Now, in your case, you said that in the group teams, there's also the team rates each other. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That to me actually sounds like at least they're trying to build some accountability to keep people involved in the team. So it really is a reward and a system to promote the teamwork. But the bottom thing that you came into is, okay, so now some people are just going to fake it. Are they not doing the work anyway?
No.
So what is to prohibit you, if they're not doing the work, to go ahead and give them a low score on their evaluation?
That to me would seem like it's counteractive with the group project, because then if they feel like they're going to get low rated, then they'll do even less work.
I think my initial take on that, Nathan, is while it's tough and it may be tough medicine at the time, if somebody is not pulling their weight, you need to go ahead and give them a low evaluation. Therefore, as the group moves forward, people know that, you know what, I can't just give it lip service. I really do need to be an active participant of this team. And in all actuality, that's a great example of where the system is designed to promote teamwork. Where it wouldn't be the case is if you were all together as a team, but all your grades, everything else were just on an individual basis.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
Okay, so I did team selling, and that's a very different component to teams. And it is based on group performance, but it comes down to individual performance. And what I figured out quickly is that in order to sell as a team, you are depending on the other person to make sure they have the relationships built and the connections built and to close the deal, if you will. The nice thing about team selling is you take individuals who have strong points and you combine them in a team, and it should be, in theory, a solid team. That doesn't always happen, but I will tell you this. I use team evaluations and peer evaluations when I'm teaching. But when you start talking money in terms of their reward, it drastically changes how people perform or not perform. Not only they don't care about necessarily losing their job, But if you're talking thousands of dollars commission every month, it drastically changes things. And I will say that a good leader and a good supervisor of teams knows who's doing what. And they also know who's strong in the team. For me personally, I mean, I could do all the team selling, but I was the girl that could get in the door and make the connection. And there's different sell, hard sell, soft sell, all that. I'm not going to get into that. But I think some of it comes down to your leader as well. And if they don't set the expectations very clear that this will be tolerated or not be tolerated, then that's another breakdown. Because students are going to, I mean, we're all busy, students especially. And so you get away with as much as you're allowed to. In the real world, put money to a team and your results will change drastically. I promise you that.
Amen.
Yeah. May I add something there, real briefly? How many marketing majors are in the class today? Anybody? Yay! One lone hand. Love you. You know, since Afton was talking about selling, one of the biggest things that you do for your customer and your customer can be any, defined any which way, the person that you're supposed to be delivering the results of the team to, etc. But it's all this concept of managing expectations. And one thing, was it Nathan who asked the question? One thing that I see, there's a failure in the beginning stages of a peer evaluation is that the rubric by which someone is being graded is not communicated up front. So the team together and look at it and really identify how each team member will be proving that they are participating based on, all of these different stages by which they're being graded by each other. And it's that upfront communication and upfront managing of expectations that in the end, when you do have to give someone a poor score because they did not do something, you know that you had the conversation among the team members and with that person, and they said they understood what they needed to do in order to be a good performer in that team. So if you were marking them down, then you know what you are rewarding them for. What I notice many times is a professor sometimes will give you that peer evaluation at the end of your project, and you've never seen it before. And so managing those expectations are incredibly important to, all aspects of business, marketing, et cetera, but definitely in the team building component.
Thank you, Beth. That is so true. I think we have time for one more question. And I'm sorry to keep y'all a little bit later than we'd hoped, but I think we have time for one more question. Jeremy, did you have something to add real quick?
Real quick, I was just going to ask Mr. Nathan if he was the only one if he knows if he's the only one that felt that way within the group or in that peer, or if he knows of the others in the group that are feeling the same way about that particular individual not pulling the weight or whatnot. And if so, that falls back on the communication. So where is that? Where you have to be able to give that constructive criticism back, open up the lines of communication and say, hey, are you the only one feeling this way? Or if there's multiple people, again, it comes back to that fear of not communicating these problems that may exist. And then it falls back on responsibility and accountability. Accountability to yourself and the way it's going to affect your tasks, and the responsibility of the team as a whole. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Your point was well taken, Jeremy. Okay, one more question on this side, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Vivian Parker. I'm a sophomore. I'm also a general business major. My question is, do you think the use of teams with all the technological advances is increasing or decreasing? And virtual teams, should we be concentrating on working in virtual teams even more?
I'll take real quick on that one. To start off, the generation today, who is not being involved in a team? Look at social media. who raise your hand if you are involved with Twitter, Facebook, etc. Okay, those are part of those in itself. In a broader picture, that's a team because you are communicating with people on certain topics that you agree with, disagree with, and so by doing that, you're already being at the fingertips of life in general, being part of a team and having experience and collaborating with people you may know, people you don't even. And then there's technologies out there like we're using today with video conferencing and just the expectation of being able to implement these type of technologies into the industry, whichever you choose to go into, they're always going to be there. Technology is always in constant state of change. And with that, you have to be also one to accept the willingness to change or accept those ideas and just keep your mind open about it. But again, it's at your fingertips. And if you don't have a Facebook, I've met literally a couple of weeks ago, I met a 19-year-old who said, I stay away from Facebook and then also uses a jitterbug cell phone as opposed to any smart mobile. So, I mean, they're out there by all means, but you definitely have to be willing to, I guess, at least understand and have a knowledge of what's going on around you. And technology, it's
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Vivian, for the question.
Elva, you need to introduce me to Jeremy so I can tell him no Facebook and an old cell phone.
I will definitely do that. I will do that. And I said that was the last question, but I actually have a statement that I think I would like to emphasize for this group, because when you work in teams, and all of you, and I know Dr. Harris, you understand this concept that social styles do play a part in your role in teams. Leaders are made of all shapes and sizes, so no matter whether you tend to have silent leadership or more pronounced driven leadership style, everyone in the group has the potential for leadership. Would y'all agree with that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Well, I want.
And can I say just one last thing about the technology piece? I may get run out of the room when I say this, but I'm one of these people who I think technology is important, and I think it's a useful tool when it is regarded as a tool, a means to an end, not an end in itself. I'm concerned that we've become high-tech, low-touch.
Yes.
And there's something missing sometimes in our human interactions when we rely on this anonymous way of communicating with one another. I'm one of these professors who does not teach online. I have done it. I don't like it. And if I'm asked to do it, I will do everything I can to keep from doing it because I like to see my students face to face. And I think a lot of times we end up losing. There's a limitation on the message that we try to convey on Twitter and on email. And if we're not careful, we're going to get trapped into that as people relying on that as their only way of communicating.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. No, I think your point's well taken, and we did have someone clapping in the back of the room when you made that statement. So you have a supporter back there. Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to go ahead and wrap this up, and thank you, Ben, Beth, Jeremy, Dr. Harris, and Afton for your time this morning. I know that our class was engaged, and I know I really enjoyed it as well. If you guys have any questions or any kind of comments that you'd like to share, if you email me, that's fine, and I'll ask the class if they have any follow-ups. If you would also be willing to respond to some of their questions, that would be wonderful.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. And other than that, I'd like to go ahead and wrap this up for today. And again, thank you for your time. And I think they'll go ahead and wave to show that they stayed awake most of the time. But we thank you for your service today. Bye.
You're welcome. Thank you, Alva. Thanks for arranging this.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
thank
Pleasure
you.
to
Great
meet some
question.
colleagues there.